We all agree that in a national park city, well, of course, you should have the right to grow up. Of course, people should be able to work with their friends and neighbours where they live and grow food together.
London has been given the first ever national park city status.
London, the world's first national park city.
Come and enjoy, because life's too short, really and truly.
And London, wow, what an amazing city.
So, greener,
healthier,
and wilder.
So I'm Mark Cridge, I'm Director of London National Park City, and this is the Do London Differently podcast. It's a really special edition today. We've got a group conversation about the right to grow, and we're going to be discussing about how to democratise access to food production within communities, and we'll be talking about imagination and storytelling and creativity and all the good things that help change people's opinions. So just to get started, I'm going to let everyone introduce themselves. So I'll pass to Tori to say hello and maybe tell us a bit about yourself.
I'm Tori Sherwin, and I'm a director of Incredible Edible Lambeth. We have about 180 food growing groups in Lambeth, and we try and support them as much as we can.
Hello, I'm Carmen from Right to Grow Tower Hamlets. Been with the campaign since March last year. And I also run a couple of food gardens in Tower Hamlets.
Hi everyone, I'm Kalpana and I'm one of the co-organisers for the Right to Grow London network.
Hello, I'm Celine. I'm with Transition Newham and Right to Grow Newham, and we have about 60 community gardens, food growing spaces in Newham.
But I guess, so we're sitting here in the National Park City Visitor Centre, right in the centre of London, incredibly urban area. I mean, the idea of growing food in the city, that's crazy, isn't it? I mean, you can't grow food in the city. So, I mean, how does that work? Where do you start to think about how you might grow food where you live in the streets and neighbourhoods?
You find spaces, publicly owned spaces, which are unused. You ask permission, you do soil testing and other tests to establish if the plot is actually suitable for growing, or use high-rise planters or vertical growing in pots if there are contaminations. A lot of the land in London is contaminated with heavy metals because of the war damages.
But that sounds quite a lot to understand. I mean, how do you sort of learn where to start with all of this? I mean, that I guess is that the role of the Right to Grow movement? I mean, Kalpana, I mean, what is the, maybe take a step back, what is the Right to Grow movement, first of all?
The Right to Grow is essentially a policy that helps people access land, but also create community networks that help you to just grow anywhere. And so we've got some incredible groups here from Lambeth, Tower Hamlets, and Newham that have been pushing towards a right to grow in London, and giving people basically the access to grow land and skills and networks. So yeah, Carmen, you probably have more to share as well.
I think in Tower Hamlets, the very first thing was to understand what the needs and the demands, the challenges of the existing community gardens and growing spaces were. I mentioned how I already, before joining the Right to Grow, I was already one person in a group running a garden on a housing estate. And there was essentially a 1-year rolling lease. There's very little support from council officers. So there was a whole list of challenges. So it was trying to firstly understand what those existing needs were from the existing growing community, but then going beyond that towards thinking who else could be growing, who else who don't have access to a garden by their housing estate. But how could we open up the conversation or even the awareness around how the benefits of food growing, and then get people to actually start to demand and desire it themselves and feel that actually it's something possible that they could do and have within their lives. So I think that there's that public engagement part, which is a huge thing for the campaign. And that's like that coincides with all our work with engaging the people within the council, because so it's kind of trying to work like top down and bottom up, and making sure we have people like demanding the right to grow on the ground, and pushing their councillors and stuff.
Yeah, so the right to grow is basically a two-prong approach that can start with community, but it can also start from councils. And I think our work as leads and as organisers is to kind of bring the two together. And people like Tori who've worked with Lambeth Council. Do you want to share more about that?
We spent quite a lot of time mapping what the barriers were to food growing. So we got funding from the Mayor's office and put in 6 new food growing projects, but we also at the same time talked to people about the barriers they faced, and we mapped them out. Like, there's no single point of contact in the council, so people don't know where to go to get permission. We don't have leases at all. It's quite permissive in Lambeth. People have just got on and done it, but there's lots of policies supporting food growing, but there's no kind of cross-departmental joined up working. So, and then another director and I just spent 2 years kind of just writing down all the problems that we came across as we were going through this, and then that helps us kind of understand what. Then we joined the Right to Grow, because it's very clear that people, there's not the support there should be for food growing. It's really big. People really like doing it and need to do it, but there's not the institutional support that there should be, and there's certainly not the funding. Yeah. People exist on an absolute shoestring on a piece of land that they've managed to grab. Really, that's about it.
So why is food growing in cities important, do you think?
Well, we're facing a really severe food scarcity in London. I heard the year 2030 being called as the year when it's getting drastic, and if we see the skyrocketing numbers of people depending on food banks, like an increase in the last 6 years of 300%, which means the number tripled, of food bank users, show that families are struggling to feed themselves. And if this is getting more severe, we have the political background to see that it could become really severe. Reaching out, trying to get self-sustainable regain of food autonomy in this country seems to be a solution to this.
There's also a real disconnection from food. We've been doing we're working on a neighbourhood food plan, and there's something about young people and the way they're targeted by marketing from big corporates about food, and their disconnection, like their grandparents know how to grow or knew how to grow and know how to cook and are passionate about real food, but then a lot of parents have been forced to go out to work, and then so the children quite often are bringing up their siblings, and they don't have the food knowledge. So there's this huge disconnection, and food growing helps people connect with what food is, the miracle of the fact that when you plant something and it's a joyful thing, and it connects people to nature in the city and to each other and to their well-being, and
it connects all ages, people from everywhere. I remember there was this, I mentioned that this grandma from Bangladesh who communicated how to grow in our little backyard garden, and that was so beautiful.
Yeah, so many people are bringing knowledge, and it's a small action you can take that has an enormous impact, really, and so many people can do it. We're learning from each other, and it's very equal.
And children can start. It's like the nursery that adopted a planter in our little community garden. It was so beautiful to see how these really tiny little beings were planting and enjoying it so much. It's so pure and it's so beautiful to see.
I think it's really, really important for schools to reintroduce food growing, because that's a very immediate link for little children, that they are connecting with nature and also proper food. But we've just done a schools conference, and it's not on the curriculum anymore. It used to be 40 years ago, but it's gone. And there's no... I did lots of research into any resources for school food growing. It's almost nil. So a lot of this campaign is just to get it higher up the agenda.
And schools have so much land access. Like a really great example in London is Grow. They're called We Are Grow, but they have a farm up in Barnet, and a lot of their curriculum is now implementing a lot of the work that's happening in the farm in order to teach children about food growing, but also science, biology, even maths. So there's great ways to kind of integrate the importance of nature and food growing just in our day-to-day lives. But that's something that I really love about the Right to Grow campaign, is that it's not just about changing policy at the top. It's really about the everyday and creating those kind of like habits and connections and relationships that allow us to kind of be citizens of our cities once more. And I think that's where it's really represented in London as a national park city. It's really seeing people and nature at the center of how we navigate London, but also, in other parts of the country.
You mentioned sort of nature. What's the sort of intersection between the right to grow and the right to nature, the right to clean air, the right to swim in our rivers and so on? There seems lots of adjacent ideas which all sit quite comfortably together. I mean, that's very much what we champion within National Park City, that these things should be evident in place for everyone who lives in a national park city. But what's the kind of intersection between local nature recovery and biodiversity and so on with food growing?
They're the most biodiverse spaces. Yeah. And also it's the most visceral way that people can connect with nature, because you're making something happen using nature, but you also have to learn about climate-friendly growing and soils and which plants to plant for the most benefit for biodiversity. So you're learning all the time, but it's something you're going to eat. So it's very immediate.
Think permaculture principles, think food forests, which are a brilliant approach to push biodiversity, to create spaces for ecological circles of growing and decaying and nurturing the growth of plants again. It's amazing if you think how food forests work and how the plants feed the soil to then grow again with fungi, microbes, and all the animals that live above ground, like pollinators, like bugs, beetles. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I think that reconnection back to like natural cycles. And I think sometimes, I guess the way that our cities have been designed in the modern world, it's outside of those natural cycles. And so we have designated spaces in which nature can exist, like parks. But why can't nature just coexist within our everyday lives or our everyday walks? So I think where the Right to Grow kind of comes in is about making nature and food growing as accessible as possible, as opening your door and it's at your doorstep. Whether it's like a tree pit or a gardening bed that you put up with your neighbors. I think the accessibility point is really important when it comes to the campaign work, but also just the storytelling in and of itself. Like, you're bringing people together in a way that is truly radical, but also very human.
And it's so universal because everybody eats. That's the thing. I think nature spaces are sometimes remote from people, but like I have a little garden over the road from me, and on the estate where I live, you really never see anybody and you very rarely have any interaction. But when I'm in the garden, people come past and they talk and it's an amazing, it's something about it breaks down those...
It breaks down barriers. Yeah, for sure. And it's an easy way to start conversations with people.
They're really grateful and happy that it's happening, and it's really strange, but they would never speak normally.
Yeah, so that role of community is really important for this. I mean, that whole coming together, breaking bread together, cooking together, but also growing together. How did each of you sort of get drawn into this? Before you sort of understood what the Right to Grow movement was, were you already gardening yourself and then found this, or what was your route to get involved in this, I guess?
I was already part of running a garden in Tower Hamlets, so that's how I was. You mean before that? Yes, a community fruit garden. So it's like run by about 5 or 6 community members, and then we've got about 80 members. So I got into that So before that, I guess I'd been into food growing for about maybe 10 years. I guess I was actually living in Shanghai and wanting to, I don't know, understand. Actually, I never even questioned anything about food or where my food came from. And to be honest, moving from London to Shanghai. Shanghai is like, an even bigger city, but essentially people eat far more connected to like what is available from the seasons. And there'd be fruit shops, and I'd go out, and if it's mango season or whatever season, watermelon season, it's like floor to ceiling of that. And then it suddenly made me think, why? And I never thought about things being grown in season, or what was in a shop, a food store, actually being connected to the land. And I was, I don't know, in my like mid-late 20s. So yeah, it was the first time I was like really shocked by myself. And then a few things led me to just start to question my relationships with land and soil. And, I stopped thinking that it was just like dirt, and actually realized like its value. And then started like working on organic farms and lived with a few communities that kind of had very different relationships with land. So it was like both a social, economic, and philosophical thing as well, or maybe a spiritual change for me. But yeah, then moved back to London later, and wanted to study and work on the land, and wanted to start with, a neighbouring somewhere extremely local, and wanted to build community. And it was the perfect, community gardens are the perfect space to build community. There is nothing else like it, or no social club for adults out there. So it is.
That's a great tagline.
Yeah, and it's like you get people who are still at uni or have just left home. There's we've got elders who are in their like 70s, who have so many stories from their childhoods being in the same being in Tower Hamlets and growing up in the space, and they get to share about history and I don't know, like loads of stories. And and as everyone else is saying, there's so much food that is culturally relevant to other different cultures, and we get to experience that. And every year at Cranbrook, we end up like growing a new variety which people had never tried before. And then we've ended up creating a cookbook over 18 months where so it went from just growing to actually like cooking together and creating a fundraising like £3,000 to create a cookbook that could be shared and written and directed and illustrated and everything by over 20 members of our like cooking and growing club.
That's incredible.
And
I really want to see this cookbook now.
Yeah, it's the most ADHD colourful thing that you've ever seen, and it's in Bengali and English. So it's like.
I got into it when I moved to the area where I live, which was at the time even worse than it is now. But there are virtually no food there at all, and there's virtually nowhere to go to meet other people, and it's just really barren and badly designed. But there was a little park in the middle of it, and we kind of a load of women got involved in regenerating the park, and we raised money for it. And then there was an empty greenhouse, which we were just dying to get our hands on. And then when the regeneration was finished, then I started working in the park, and food was such a common denominator because there is no food there, but also there's so many different cultures and people have got so much to give. And you can smell all the food as you walk around, just thinking there's no outlet for this. And then the passion for it came from there, I think, really. I always think people who love food growing think it's the answer to absolutely everything, and other people who don't get it at all don't think it's anything.
So what's the way in for new people? I mean, how do you draw new people into this? Because people are busy, they're constantly they're stressed about so many other things. They just want to get home and make their food, and but more likely you'll get the ready meal out or whatever. How do you sort of unlock that time and space for people to build this into their lives?
Just
I guess
being there, smiling at people that pass by in your neighborhood, saying good morning, saying hello, saying how are you, and bit by bit people open up and start talking to you. And this is how we established our little community garden. We have a little community hub, and people started saying, well, it would be super nice if our kids learn how to do a little bit of gardening. Can we do this? And yeah, we can. If everybody's helping together, all hands together, we can make it happen. So neighbours just brought seeds, seedlings, plants, and it happened organically with everyone engaging, with everyone feeling responsible because they felt ownership for it.
So that's what the Right to Grow is about removing bureaucratic barriers and providing more funding so like all schools can grow all children, because in a way by the time people have got older sometimes it's a bit late, so the little children need to do it.
Natural England released a study that was like after the age of 12, people start losing that connection to nature. But I think what you were mentioning is so like on point. I think it starts with a conversation and just very kind of light touch sort of, points, just because I think one of the things that people will always come up and say is just, I don't know how to grow food, so I don't feel I can go to a community garden. But you don't need to be an expert to learn or to just show up. So I think, the Right to Grow Walthamstow group did a really great campaign where I think they just held open invitations for people to have a cup of tea and just, talk about food, talk about growing. And I think that's a really great way in. It's just starting with that light conversation.
With that conversation, you also then get to transfer or express how you or how the group is passionate and really sees something beyond this, what this newbie doesn't see is and I feel like they also, I don't know, then they are kind of pushed to be a bit curious as to what magic is within the garden that they could also be actually affected by. I think that I think earlier on you'd mentioned about that visceral experience of eating or growing, and it is that I think so I also work on an NHS garden, and it's about creating processes and spaces for recovery and well-being. And I talked with a co-facilitator about what is it that is different in a garden and not in a classroom. And it's you don't in a garden things are living and things are things are working potentially towards that person's health, as long as they are interacting and engaging and noticing it, noticing them. So so in the garden it's not just the two facilitators, it's actually so many more lives and so many more processes that are actually engaging and interacting and stimulating that person's mind.
We're really trying to think about this on a neighbourhood level, because there's so many people who are disconnected from food, and how do we do that sort of system change? And we've done lots of workshops with people, and they're saying that cultural activities and safe spaces that are genuinely accessible, and the sharing of food that's been grown in those spaces, so people kind of get to so they come in because they want to do something that interests them anyway.
I find that seed swaps are a great kind of entry point for people, because one of the main things is, especially when it comes to gardening, is that it's kind of it's this middle class thing that people do or have a hobby with, because a lot of it is costly, getting the materials, the tools, the plants, and all of that. But seed swaps are a great way to just get some free access to those tools. And I think a lot of people don't know that, or they think that they have to come with seeds in order to get some, but you can just arrive there and, get some seeds for free.
Where I worked at Myers, we just gave away baby plants, I think about 50,000 baby plants a year. And then people just started growing because you can just stick it in the ground and then you get success. And that really helps as well, I think.
So with that, which ground are we sticking these plants into? I mean, this is sorry, you want to jump in on it?
The Friends of Shanda's Open Space, they had an action where they've been putting seeds in little envelopes with a sticker on it which said, maybe you don't know my name, but we meet every morning. So here are some seeds for you to plant and enjoy. They cause so much joy, and people were like, hey, I've received these seeds. That's really lovely. And started talking to their neighbours about it, and I'm going to plant them. And it's very simple and very effective.
Yeah, absolutely. And finding those ways in is just so important and making it possible. So I guess with that in mind, I mean, you might have, most people don't have front gardens in London. Some fortunate people do. You might have a little corner, a balcony, whatever. But I guess a lot of what we've been talking about are communal growing spaces. And obviously the right to grow, LinkedIn is about a right to grow within these public spaces. So maybe could we unpack a bit about what type of places we're talking about? Maybe some examples of landowners who've really embraced the right to grow and enabled it. And for those landowners that maybe haven't yet embraced the right to grow, what's stopping them? What are the barriers to this being taken up more widely? You guys are on the front line with this, so it'd be great.
It's just such a drive towards making money from land, I think.
Yeah.
So councils are very worried about giving it away.
What does giving land away mean in this context?
Giving anybody rights to be on land.
There is a plot of land which has been unused since the Olympics. Before the Olympics, when they built a space for media, I think. And it's empty since 2011. And it has seen all sorts of not quite legal businesses happening there. It's back into the gardens of the terrace houses. And the owners are not very happy about it because they feel it's kind of dangerous because people can break in without being seen. And we've been trying to get this land, like the neighbourhood group has been trying to get access to this land to create a little community garden for 5 years. And the council just says no, because it might be developed. Yeah. But I plant a seed, even I know that it's developed next week, because this can be, but can be not. So there is a chance that this seed will actually grow. And it's still better to develop it for a community, even if it's just for a short period, than to leave it empty and to all sorts of maluse.
Because I guess to link those two, so the fear from some of the landowners, councils, whoever it might be, is that if they give you the right to access, they'll lose it and they won't be able to get that land back. But that isn't really what happens, is it? I mean, that's kind of
sometimes
not. Is it the opening of the door is like, well, it's better to just say no because we can't take the risk. I mean, how do you overcome that?
I kind of wanted to just clarify that, at least for Tower Hamlets, one of the key challenges is like there's not enough housing. So when I think the council are very much like, we are legitimate in our, desire and our need to provide enough suitable housing for our residents. And there's a huge waiting list. Lots of people in temporary housing, lots of, they need to, house the homeless. So yeah, they have like, very legitimate agendas to wanting to build and develop, affordable housing. But at the same time, for the right to grow Tower Hamlets, we say that we acknowledge, this need, but at the same time, we don't want to become a green desert. and Tower Hamlets is already, you know, very low on like per capita access to green space, and you know, by providing housing shouldn't mean that we are lowering people's, value to their lives and you know, their access to green space, and lowering like lifestyles. So that's why we kind of within Tower Hamlets we're trying to push for opening up like smaller like patches of land, so that, you know, even with the development of more housing, that, you know, residents will be able to have like access to land for their like green space needs. But also at the same time, we have also been speaking with other like social housing providers, and there are some like great Poplar Harker, for example. They have allotment spaces on their social housing plots, like land. So they are already at the same time as, you know, us pushing, you know, trying to push the council to create more allotment spaces. These social housing providers and Queen Mary University, they are already kind of listening and eager to open up their land to growing on, whether it's right to grow or just another,
I think it's like activating all of those players as well. Like everyone will have a different purpose and need on that land, but it's about reimagining space entirely and not kind of going with the status quo of what we have known, because what we have known just hasn't worked. And if we continue down that route, it'll just create sicker societies and sicker cities. And so something that I think we're working on as a campaign and as a movement is showing how powerful meanwhile spaces can be, but also that microsites are just as important as, you know, large parks, because sometimes those are the lifelines for communities who don't have access to nature or access to green spaces. And when we connect all of those dots together, I think you end up seeing that there's a real green tapestry of things that can actually come about by people just taking charge and also taking power from even micro small spaces like you've mentioned.
They're really, really important, say, for people who are disabled or elderly, because they can't get to the pub, but they can get to the local one. But I think a lot of it isn't actually active resistance to people doing it. It's just that there isn't capacity within councils to do joined up support for it. And that's really what we're asking for, the Right to Grow, is to get more capacity to make these things happen.
Yeah. It's not really high on their list of priorities.
No, it's often not, is it? They think we can't grow enough food. That's the thing that I've always heard, that you're not growing enough to make it worthwhile, but it's not really taking into account the amount people grow with no resources and no support is incredible, but also the amount of benefits and across the whole range of...
Yeah, because it's not just about the sheer quantity of food grown, it's the act of food growing is really critical.
And what happens in communities when you do...
And I think Pam Moore from Incredible Edible always talks about this a lot, but you know, you're creating this kind of idea of sticky economies that from food growing, you don't just get food, but you get craft, you get people coming together to kind of, you know, pickle their foods or ferment ideas. And from that, you get a lot of kind of network sharing that grows to just beyond food. And I think that locality is something that I think councils should champion. And in some ways, communities are doing a lot of the work for them. So why shouldn't they support the groups that are doing this on the ground?
Yeah. It's one of the best ways to build a network and build resilient relationships between people. In like the area where I live has been quite a lot of conflict between people, but when people grow food and eat it together and cook it together, those relationships last. It seems to do something magical.
So what does next 5 years, what does success for the Right to Grow movement in London look like?
I mean, I would like to see all the boroughs and councils in London adopt a right to grow or be in the process of adopting a right to grow. And I think that's totally possible. Right now, we've got 3 underway and more growing.
What are the 3?
Southwark, Hackney, and Hounslow. I'm like, Hounslow, I'm not sure. They're in the way, but yeah.
And also to have, because it's not just passing the motion, it's like you're working on, and we're working on what that looks like. So what a community agriculture looks like in a borough, what infrastructure needs to be in place in the council to support it, and what funding needs to be. I want a lot more funding for food growing. I'd like to have the lottery doing a specific fund for food growing would be amazing.
Hearing what the about the Ranger programme, I feel like what would be really beneficial for the Right to Grow would be some kind of training or grower recruitment programme where we can also get people to, I guess, take lead on like certain sites and propose and create some kind of like how to set up new gardens kind of processes, and not just the social side and also the practical, but also the how to approach and deal with the people that you need to deal with within the council, and all the how to set up like organised form and structures. Yeah, so all that kind of knowledge
in every borough.
Yes.
Yeah, would be great.
Well, I feel that kind of knowledge could be created amongst the people organising within the borough. So lots more of this type of connection work.
Yeah, because I think just passing the Right to Grow policy is that's just the beginning. It's like the first step. And a lot of communities have started that organising work already. But it's really about reimagining how the systems could work to benefit society and to benefit citizens themselves, which, passing a Right to Grow can absolutely do that. So
In 5 years' time, I would like to see loads of gardens, food forests everywhere with happy people gardening together.
And of course, that's exactly what a national park city should be. I mean, London is the world's first national park city. And so I think we all agree that in a national park city, well, of course, you should have the right to grow up. Of course, people should be able to work with their friends and neighbours where they live and grow food together and kind of understand how food is grown, and kind of anything that reduces the sort of burden of food miles and where food is flown all over the world. Even taking 10, 20, 30% off that makes an incredible difference. And this is good quality food as well. It's like it's literally homegrown and fresh.
And the more you grow, the more you get healthier cities, healthier soil. So I think it's once you start that process, you really are changing things. Yeah.
I would also like to see a change in the curriculum for the schools.
Definitely.
To get gardening in there, for a school, being in touch with nature and teaching children nature. Because if children understand nature, feel nature, experience nature, they want to protect it.
How can people get involved? You're a member of the public, citizen, and you're centre of London somewhere. Where do you start? How do you get involved?
A great way is join the Right to Grow London newsletter. And then from there, we can connect you to our wider WhatsApp group where we can kind of share resources for every borough that has an active Right to Grow community and group. So, right here, we've got a couple of community groups who then have different ways to get involved, and whether it's campaigning or food growing. I don't know if you guys want to share anything about that.
So within Tower Hamlets, we have lots of events coming up. So different types of like grow outs in like outdoor spaces, just to show up the practical side of growing, but also some like learning sessions and sharing about why community growing spaces are important with existing like growers around the borough. So we have a summer series coming out, and we also have a walking tour on June the 7th. So for around 5 community food gardens, and one's a GP garden, one's a garden on by railroads, one is a garden in a church, and then there's a community orchard and a city farm. So you get all of that in 2 hours on June the 7th, if the podcast is already out by then.
I always go back to Ranger Katie Blake down in Folkestone Road Allotments. And Katie was already an amazing community leader before she became a ranger, but by becoming a ranger, it just gave her a confidence and a sort of agency to feel that she could connect with other people and she could take a more of a leadership role within the community as well. So it's like, I think that when you become part of these networks, like Right to Grow, it really empowers you as an individual, but it makes the whole network stronger and the whole community stronger. It's just so inspiring, the work you all do. So just any closing thoughts on kind of where Right to Grow goes next? And yeah.
I have a recommendation. Everyone who's interested in growing, just go and visit your local community garden and say hi and have a look around. And there will be a lovely gardener, a lovely person just taking you by the hand and showing you around and tell you how you can get involved.
And a lot of boroughs are mapping all their gardens, aren't they? So we've got a map with a lot of them on. So it's easy. Incredible Edible Lambeth has a map of all our food growing spaces.
In our walking tour, it's like a process of like getting people to become like a right to grower. It's not just a lovely walking through like 5 gardens. So yeah, and then we have a bit of a process of getting people like, there's 5 steps to become a right to grower, and the first step is just start off like supporting your local garden and meeting them, and you're trying to hear out like what they need and how they can be supported by volunteers.
I would say, I think it doesn't matter where you live or how much time you have on your hands. You can make it a part of your routine. You can make growing a part of your routine, or just visiting a local garden part of your routine. So just don't let the shoulds or the musts kind of get in your way, because it's really possible. So just try to find a network near you and then see what happens.
Fantastic. Great advice. Well, it's been such an amazing conversation. Thanks, Celine, Kalpana, Carmen and Tori. That's the Do London Differently podcast on food growing. Thanks also to Michael Schilling behind the camera, who's been recording everything. And we'll make sure we push out all the different ways to get involved with Right to Grow. And look forward very much to every borough adopting the Right to Grow in the next couple of years. And together we can make London greener, healthier and wilder. Thank you.
London has been given the first ever national park city status.
London, the world's first national park city.
Come and enjoy, because life's too short, really and truly.
And London, wow, what an amazing city.
So, greener,
healthier
and wilder.